we have to do a better job of trying to, it's great that we have all this education that's out there talking about cycles and all that stuff, but we need to do a better job to try to tell these kids exactly what I just said. You're limiting your end potential substantially. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk.
You know, with the cardiovascular thing, I mean, men cardiovascular events are probably the #1 thing that kill men anyway. You know, this is something I've often wondered about. Is the P.E.D. use that goes on in bodybuilding and powerlifting worse for you than drinking beer and smoking cigarettes? Probably not.
We're going to have a biased opinion, right? But I'm going to agree and say probably not, right? And for several reasons too, because you're not driving impaired. Yeah. Right. So forget the actual toxicity of the compound that you're using. You know, a lot of people are dying of, drunk driving, shit like that. So,
well, the WHO just they had a thing came out recently that alcohol is the #1 killer of men under 50 worldwide. Really? Alcohol-related deaths, side effects and stuff now. So it's that people don't consider that. Yeah. But, and I sound like I'm justifying what we do, but
of course we are. But anyhow,
I mean, if I'm going to waste my health on something, I'd rather waste it.
Well, the alcoholics are going to justify it as well. They're going to say, well, what I'm doing is definitely better than fucking taking Tren all the time, right? The question I was going to ask was with mitigation, and I think when Skip was out and, other people in the bodybuilding field that I've had out, I throw this one out there, is now that there's two factors to this. Now that the medications that are out there make it easier to mitigate the side effects. Do you see doses going up because of that? Because I would have pulled back.
Guys are going to push harder.
Okay, because that's where I was going. Is I always would pull back because I just felt horrible. And if you take so much that you feel horrible, then you're not going to recover. You're not going to make progress. So I'd pull back. Now, if I had something that made me not feel horrible, like blood pressure wise, I know what I would have done.
Oh yeah, guys are going to push harder.
So can that lead to some of the issues that you're talking about?
I mean, it's what is the axiom in toxicology? The dose is. Toxicity is in the dose, so the more you take, the higher the toxicity is going to be. But I mean, when you look at it, if you pull back and look at it, there is a curve. I go back to alcohol again as an analogy. It's like guys getting this mentality that they think more is better. There is an optimal dosing, and then when you get beyond that, you just get sicker. I mean, it's a curve. It's you think about it like with drinking. Once you're drunk, you're drunk. If you keep drinking more, if 8 beers get you drunk and you drink 20, you're not any drunker off of 20 than you are at 8. You're just getting sicker. Yeah. And it's the same thing, I know it's a ridiculous analogy, but it's the same thing with PEDs. If you I hear guys taking crazy doses. Like I get guys coming, like, dude, you're smaller than me. What are you doing? So clearly it's not working. And we know once again, there is a limiting rate of how much a person can grow in a year. There's only so much muscle protein synthesis you can generate in a year, no matter how much you take. Yeah.
I think another factor plays into that, just being around this shit as long as I have, is there's always been younger people going on stuff. So I'm not going to say that teenagers weren't going on 40 years ago. I'm not going to say that, but they're going on. There's definitely more now than there was then. So where I'm going here is when you first started training 16 in that first range, there's probably a big chunk of time in there, I'm assuming, that you weren't taking anything.
No, I didn't take anything.
Okay, so you're not taking anything. But while you're not taking anything, you're also learning the importance of how much to eat. Maybe not the right shit, but eating more makes a difference. The importance of recovery, the importance of sleep, the importance of training hard, the importance of training too hard. All these things you're kind of figuring out. For a strength athlete, they'd see their bench goes they newbie gains, then it stops. Then they got to figure out, okay, fuck, I got to get it stronger. So they work their technique, or they find different ways, assistant exercises, or what programs, whatever, to be able to come through there. When the first answer to that first sticking point is test. Then they're reducing all the other options in the future. So then the only option that they know
is more
shit. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where I think is a community as a whole, a strength community, we have to do a better job of trying to, it's great that we have all this education that's out there talking about cycles and all that stuff, but we need to do a better job to try to tell these fucking kids exactly what I just said. You're limiting your end potential substantially.
Yeah, I see these phases of rapid growth, and you know, and I think you have to master certain things before you get to that point. So like you said, the first phase of rapid growth or rapid progress is the newbie gains. You can literally go in the gym, do anything.
Oh yeah.
And you're going to grow and get stronger. And then you hit a wall where that stops working. And then the next part where I see where people make another bit of rapid progress is when they figure out how to eat. Mm-hmm. That's something I enjoy when I work with young guys, is teaching them how to eat, and then it's like the light switch clicks on, and they see this additional burst of rapid progress from learning how to eat. The first time you take a cycle, you're going to have another burst of rapid progress, and then the other one, the last one, this is the fourth one that I see, is after you do a show and you catch that first rebound, is where I see guys have rapid bit of progress. But then after that, it's just the grind. But so I feel like very first thing, you got to learn how to lift.
Yeah.
You got to master the exercises, learn how to lift, and then you have to figure out how to eat first. And I don't think if you have those two buttoned up, you're not really going to get much out of the ladder, really.
Yeah. Well, they will, obviously. I mean, they'll get that first kick that you talked about.
But you'll see the guys that don't figure out how to eat and figure out how to train, they don't progress anymore. They get that first bit of gains from taking their first cycle, and they never make progress after that, ever. They're just stuck there. They gain that 10, 15 pounds or whatever it is that they gain from that first cycle, and that's it. That's where they're at for the rest of their life.
That's true.
Doesn't matter how much they take.
Yeah,
I see it over and over again. I literally will see it over and over again with guys that come to me. I'm stuck. I can't figure out why I'm not making progress. And then I clean up their diet and I get them training right, and then boom, they start making progress again.
Yeah, I can totally see that, especially with the access, the way everything is, and they're all jumping on trend anyhow. So it's fucked up what they're doing in the first place, and that from there, and as we're talking about that, see that group, I mean, it gets foggy in my head, right? Because there's beginners, and then there's a training age. Yep. So that a lot of these things.
On the engine.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this shit gets really hard to talk about, because you can get somebody that's 25 or 30 that has never really done anything. Yeah. Not really trained that much. And that's different than the person that would be 16 or 17, even with what we're talking about here. Yep. At the higher age, they may have testosterone issues. Yep. Serious testosterone issues that would have to be addressed, which they're kind of a beginner, but they're an old beginner. Yep. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's time in the gym, really. Yeah. It's to me, it's miles on the motor. So if you can be a newbie at 40 if you've never lifted before. Yeah. But I think the same rule. If that guy has a deficiency in testosterone, then I would want to bring him back up to baseline where he's like at a TRT dose, and then work on the other stuff. But I don't really consider that. Doing a cycle. That's just getting yourself back to where you were when you're, where you should be at.
How often would you suggest somebody get their blood work done, their labs done?
I tell my clients to get it done every 90 days.
Okay, so frequent.
Yeah, that's my requirement with my guys. I make them get their blood work done every 90 days.
Now, is that full panel, or is it?
I don't worry with hormones that much, because if you're on hormones, why Yeah. It is pointless. I'll have them check estradiol just to see where their estrogen's at. I'll have them check their thyroid, make sure their thyroid's functioning. But it's just all the other stuff that we talked about, kidneys, liver, lipids, the metabolic panel, making sure that your hematocrit and hemoglobin aren't out of control, kidneys, things like that.
So do you have them take a more broad panel annually?
The broad panel, well, see, a lot of guys just don't have the money to burn on it.
Yeah.
That's the issue that you run into. But I usually suggest that they go in. Usually you'll have one physical covered per year under your insurance. Most insurance will give you one physical per year. So I just tell them to go into the doctor and get a physical done.
Okay.
At the year mark. Yeah.
Is that how most people are doing it, or are they using, companies like Marek and stuff like that?
Most people are using companies like Marek because they don't want to get a lecture from their doctor.
Yeah, well, I know that's kind of why it's there, because the panels that we have set up, there's one that's like a full big broad panel, and then there's like a follow-up panel, which it's cheaper, right?
Yeah, the Marek panels are nice. I have one of my clients send me one where it has all the like what if you're out of line, it'll have a suggestion of what you should do, what supplements you should take. 40
some pages worth.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And when I used to use another company, and I still use the same doctor I've always used, right? But the issues that I was running into was, and it's nothing against my doctor, but I would go in to see him, and then he would take the labs and then call me, 2 weeks later, and either yell at me or tell me it's good. But I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
Where I started getting independent labs done that I would just privately pay for, and then I'd take it here and give it to him, and now we can talk about it, right? Because some things, and I found this because I compare my doctor Serrano, so I would compare what he'll say to what Marek says, right? So that's kind of my check and balance with the company that's supporting the podcast to make sure they're actually doing good work.
Well, Serrano seems to be aware and understand what's going on in our community.
Yes, and there's been things that, and I can't give specific examples, but there's been some things that, like, this is off, but that's not the problem. It's because that thing.
Yeah.
And I would have thought that this is the problem. And most kind of would, unless they really know their way around that. Marek was able to pick up on those things too, but unless there's, now I trust him to be able to call me and say this is fucked up or not fucked up, but it's also really, really fucking cool to have it, to be able to say, here you go, and have that in front of for that whole time, to where when Marek provides what you're talking about, the report or whatever it is.
That report is pretty badass. I've never seen anything like that from anywhere else.
Well, it fucks some people up too, because they'll look at it and think, oh my God, this is going to cost like $3,000 a month. And it's not prioritized in the report, but at least it shows, here's some potential things lifestyle wise, because everybody thinks it's going to be a medication or something like that. But a lot of it's lifestyle, controlling, fucking, we already talked about blood pressure. Controlling blood pressure is huge. And I can go on a rant about this one. You can go buy a blood pressure cuff at fucking Walmart. It's not that hard.
I have when my clients do their check-ins, I make them send their blood pressure readings in. I have them track their blood pressure, and I have them track their glucose levels, so I can keep an eye on both of them.
Really?
Yeah.
When do you have the glucose done?
Fasted. Okay. I have them check it fasted and then keep track of it. And if I start seeing fasted glucose levels rising, then, it's not necessarily, that there's insulin resistance, but it's, it's another situation where it's a canary in the coal mine. It's a time to go get an A1C test done and make sure that we're okay. Make sure that insulin resistance isn't on the rise. But we can, if we get out ahead of it, we can, insulin resistance is pretty easy to fix a lot of times.
Where are you seeing the problems with the way people are cycling stuff now?
The issue
in the bodybuilding community.
In the bodybuilding community, well, you already cited Tren. Everybody's in love with Tren. I don't know why people want to blast huge amounts of Tren.
Yeah,
I just don't understand it.
Well, it's strength. I don't understand.
Like there's a difference between bodybuilders and gym bros. Like I talk to a lot of pro bodybuilders, and what gym bros think pro bodybuilders take is not what pro bodybuilders take. So. There's these ridiculous notions that what pro bodybuilders are doing and they're not actually doing, and then like the gym bro community is just in love with Tren. I don't know why gym bros think that more side effects equals better.
Yeah,
and I'm not just saying that Tren doesn't have some value or some merit. It certainly does. It does some unique things very well that we can't do with other compounds. But it's really, for me, what it does unique, if I'm going to, let me back up. So if I'm going to roll the dice and take something that's more toxic, it better damn well have some unique benefit that I can't get from something else. And Tren does have that. So it seems to be a thermic uncoupler of some sorts, where it increases metabolism, I think, through sort of like DMP, making mitochondrial function less efficient. This is just my speculation, but everybody that's run Tren knows how you get hot when you run Tren. So that would be my speculation, what's going on there. It does seem to, it strongly suppresses glucocorticoids. So if you're in a state where you're stressed, contest prep would be a good example of that. It is protective. I mean, if you look how it's used in cattle, they use it in feedlots, where that's a very stressful, where they're taking the cattle off to slaughter. They give it to the cattle in the last, I think it's 60 days before slaughter, because they're in a stressful situation where they might not be getting as much food. And it preserves muscle, it lowers cortisol, and
yeah,
so that sounds like contest prep to me. So if I'm going to use it, I'm going to use it as a tool on contest prep. When off season, you leverage something safer. But it seems to be this obsession with Tren. I don't know what the deal is. Tren and orals. Guys, like, they're probably the two worst things for your health.
Oh yeah, I mean the orals were. I mean, they've been around fucking forever, but that was always, in my world, what you use closer to the meat.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, running A-bombs 4 weeks before powerlifting meet is way different than running them 365 days a year.
Yeah, yeah. The little statement I used to tell myself is that there were other people as well, as you lower the jabs and you up the tabs, right? It's just based on half-life, right? I mean, if it's got a longer half-life, what's it really going to do a week before, 2 weeks before?
But anadrol would be an example. It does something uniquely well that you can't do with anything else, and that is a CNS drive for strength promotion. I mean, nothing makes you stronger than anadrol. There isn't, maybe halotestin, I don't know. But anadrol is the king of that world, so there is a compelling reason to roll the dice and use that going into a meet.
Now, because that's fast-acting, would it be better used just on the heavier days?
Potentially. I mean, you could lower the stress on your system just using it as a pre-workout. That is something that I have, done myself in the past, is used orals as a pre-workout, for a lagging body part or something that I need to do on a heavy day, or, and you are taking stress off the liver and your organs and whatnot doing that.
Would you be able to run them longer because of that?
Probably.
I mean, that would be what I would think.
Yeah, probably. So, like, for example, if you were coming in to do a heavy deadlift day and you wanted to run it on that day to get a little extra out of it, that could be a strategy. Have you noticed anything with your biological age getting older as far as how you tolerate the PEDs? I mean, everything's different, man.
I know.
I can't handle orals anymore. I just, they make me sick. They make me feel awful. When I was younger, I could just, pop D-balls all day long and it didn't bother me. But yeah, I can't. I pretty much only at the very end of contest prep, I would use it. So I mean that would make sense, because your liver probably, it's the same reason why you can't drink a ton when you're older. Your liver probably isn't as efficient as it was when it was 21. It's got some miles on it. So I save it for contest prep.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the big difference that I notice. Insulin sensitivity, once it began going back to that, that's not what it was when I was younger. Food would be the thing that you have to be more careful with as you get older.
How so?
Because of insulin resistance seems to pile up quicker. Like I notice, like, older guys, like when I have them measure their glucose levels, there's only so long you can push the diet before they start rising insulin resistance, and you got to pull back. That doesn't seem to happen in younger guys.
Other things that you've noticed?
As I've gotten older,
what about just recovery in general?
I train 6 days a week still. I have noticed, like, big, heavy compound movements. Like, I can't squat, deadlift, bench press like I used to. if I go in and do a heavy set of deadlifts, I'm buried for days afterwards. I used to deadlift a ton when I was younger, but I really, like, to me, like, I start weighing out the cost versus benefit, like, of blowing myself out doing a heavy set of deadlifts. To me, I just don't even do them anymore.
I was going to say, is it even necessary?
I don't think it is for bodybuilding. I know it's a controversial. I don't even do barbell squats anymore. I really just, for the most part, like, there is a fatigue cost to those big, heavy compound movements. You know, like, you just think about it. Like, if you do a heavy set of deadlifts and then you try to train the rest of your back afterwards, you're toast.
Yeah. No, I get it. I completely understand it.
I mean, you know. So,
oh, yeah.
So I'd rather keep some gas in the tank and be able to do more with my barbell rows or my dumbbell rows. I feel like for me as a bodybuilder, I'm probably getting more out of that than I am blowing myself out on a single heavy set of deadlifts.
Oh, I believe so. 100%. Yeah, I believe so.
So, I mean, that's another thing too, is fatigue management and energy management. You know, right in the moment, I'm using up all my gas on that one exercise.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the, to me, that's the biggest similarity when I look at bodybuilding training and strength training, is that it's all still fatigue management.
Yep.
Like, you have to do what you need to do in the gym to create the stimulus and the progress that you need. But if you can't recover from what you're doing, or what you do is so extreme that it inhibits your ability to recover before you can come back to do it again, it's what does that cost, right? And then with what you do, you got a mirror, a scale, body fat. You have ways to see.
Yeah.
Like, if you pull squats out and your legs don't fucking shrink, and they actually get bigger, the answer is pretty fucking obvious.
most bodybuilders now, most of the modern bodybuilders you talk to don't squat anymore.
Yeah.
It's hack squats, lunges, leg extensions. I mean, that's pretty much how you train quads now. It seems like maybe stiff-legged deadlifts, maybe for hamstrings.
I've seen the same thing, and I wonder if it's because of what you're talking about, is there's still systemic fatigue that plays into all this as well.
Well, anytime you're placing heavy load, I mean, you had Dr. Michael, and I'm sure he talked about it, but axial fatigue. But anytime you're placing heavy load on the spine, there is a CNS cost to that.
Yes, exactly. And it's not, I would look at the squat, the deadlift, and things like that, is it's not a quad movement.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of like a global movement.
Yep.
Like, you squat hard enough, you know, it's hard to do fucking arms after that sometimes. Sometimes that's all you're going to do.
I always felt too, I mean, I used to be a pretty strong squatter. That was one of my better lifts. But when I was doing squats, I always felt it more in my back and in my ass than anywhere. I never really felt it in my quads that much.
What other things are you seeing that are misconceptions with the PEDs, with people coming through now?
Misconceptions, like some of the.
Do they still think growth is a magic formula?
I mean, growth, it is kind of the magic.
Yeah, I know, but not what people think it is.
Well,
I mean, let me dial that back. Why would you say that?
I mean, there's a reason why every pro is running high doses growth hormone.
Well, let's stop for what is high doses? Because it's, some people are gonna, I know what some people would say, 20 to 30, IU, and that's what most are not doing.
I just talked to a guy last week that kind of cracked my skull open, but it was, gotta be careful what I say. There is a group of bodybuilders, top Olympians, that are running 18 units of Serostim, which is a whole Serostim per day.
How?
And they're running at 12. I mean, the cost alone, I'm like, how the guys, like, I did the math on it. It's like,
well, that's what I'm saying. The cost, and like, how do they tie their shoes? Like, how do they function in life?
We were looking at, on my podcast, was it 2 weeks ago? If you want to check it out, I had my friend Dr. Tate on, but we were looking at the Serostim insert, the package insert that they the instructions for HIV patients on how to use it, it was 18 units a day is what they're at.
Yeah, it's high. Yeah.
Yeah, and it looked like a 12-week run of it. So what I've heard from some pros is that they're running 12 weeks on, 12 weeks off of 18 units. And that's what
I'm still going to go back to like a common side effect is your hands are gone. Like you can't feel.
Well,
is there a mitigation?
No, I mean it's water retention, I think.
Yeah.
But I tried. I don't even know if I should admit this, but I've already talked about it on my YouTube channel. Last week I tried 15 units a day for four days just to see what happens, and I was so tired. I couldn't keep my eyes open sitting at my desk. I've never been so tired in my life, and I've run higher. I think I've gone up to 10 over a sustained period of time before, and I could not feel my hands. I couldn't type. So for me, like I found that 6 to 8 seems to be the sweet spot.
Where would you say most people fall? I mean, I'm assuming that those are outliers that you're talking about.
I mean, the rule of thumb I've heard from the guys that are pros, and Justin will probably tell you this too, is take as much as you can afford and tolerate. I think that's what the guys at the pro level are doing. I mean, the kids I'm not encouraging you to do that, but that's what I've heard.
Now that has to then be balanced out because of the blood sugar and all the things that we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there are costs to that. I mean, you're going to have insulin sensitivity issues. You're going to have carpal tunnel. I know just from, I didn't start running growth hormone until, I've been running for about 4 years now. And I went to put on a watch I hadn't worn in several years, and I could not fit my watch band over my hand.
Yeah. What about your shoes?
I already wear size 15s.
All right, it's okay, all right.
I don't know how much bigger, but I have noticed that my nose has gotten bigger. I've noticed in some pictures, there's definitely some things that have grown. But the hand thing blew me away. I'm like, oh, damn. All you have to do is look at pictures of bodybuilders. Take a look at Flex Lewis pictures sometimes. The dude's got he's like 5'3", and he's got hands like like half Thor. Oh,
yeah, I mean, when I used it, my fucking hands, man. I mean, I couldn't. So at one point, the first time, because I didn't use it till after I quit powerlifting, but it got so bad that I'm like fucking seeing a doctor about this shit, and they're like, "Oh, we need your thoracic spine's all fucked up," and and I'm like, I can't. What? It took me a while to be able to figure out, what this was, and man, I couldn't type. I couldn't hold a fucking dumbbell, and it might have been 8 units. I mean, it was more than 4, and
well, so the guys are telling me that I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this, that there's something about the Serostem where you don't get those side effects. But
I had Serostem,
but I'm just like, it's either 191 amino acids or it's not. Like it's like there's. I mean, just thinking this through from a scientific perspective, it either is or it isn't. There's no varying degrees of. Now the potency may be different, but it either is real growth hormone or it's not. So I don't. There's no varying degrees of it, unless it's a 192, which is possible. I don't know, but I don't know. I know some guys. Some of I forget which one it is. One of the pharmaceutical grade growth hormones has a low dose diuretic in it to help with some of that stuff. It's not Serostem. Maybe it's genotropin. I don't remember.
It is definitely one, because I've heard that. Obviously, one I didn't have fucking access to, by the way. But it was. I would have used that one if it was the one that I had access to.
But I couldn't believe that the prescribed dose for HIV patients.
No, I've heard that, because it's.
I mean, it's what it says in the manual.
Yeah, I mean, it's the hookup I had years ago. Kind of was from that. So it was so many kits every month that you kind of had to buy because somebody was selling it because they were prescribed to it, and they wanted the money more than they wanted the growth hormone because what they're. So you're kind of locked in, for what you're going to have to be able to get there, and it was I believe it was 4. Like, it was a kit a week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm trying to like, how in the fuck is that prescribed that? And then it started to make sense when, I looked at kind of the same thing that we asked. What is your, like, I'm like, how in the fuck are you being prescribed this at this dose? And that's what it is. And so then it's like, well, how come your hands aren't fucking, like, what's the difference?
Well, I mean, we're also taking a bunch of other growth agents. We're eating a ton of food.
Yeah.
You're in a caloric surplus. You're taking anabolics. You're taking insulin. I mean,
that don't matter though. There's
a bunch of other crap going on. I don't know. At the end of the day, like, I think this is the part that I try to impart on young guys and they don't get. The secret is that there really is no secrets.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just hard work and a grind. It just takes a long time to put on that size. I talked about it earlier before you were in here, but you look at a guy, Justin talks about this sometimes too, but you look at a guy like Nick Walker, had one of the most impressive runs of putting on size, 100 pounds of stage weight in 9-10 years, something like that. But you do the math on it, it averages out to 10 pounds a year. Mm-hmm. But it's not linear either. So I mean, he probably put on first year, 20, then 15, then 12, then 8, then 5. But this is just, say, for simple math, let's just say 12 pounds per year was a good year for him. That's 1 pound a month. That's a quarter pound per week. That is imperceivable in the mirror. You can't go to the mirror and see a quarter pound of weight gain in the mirror. Mm-hmm. And I think like young bodybuilders just get impatient and they're like, I'm not seeing progress. I'm not seeing progress. You just have to commit yourself to the grind. And really there's these tenets to bodybuilding. It's having your diet buttoned up, training hard. You use the anabolics as a tool. You rest, you recover, you repeat. It's really a boring, monotonous sport. And the guys that do really well at it tend to be, at least from what I've seen, are introverts that thrive on this routine where they just get up and do the same thing over and over and over again every day. And that's really what it is. And nobody wants to hear that.
No, and for me, when I was going through that, and the respect that I had after doing it for whatever it was.
I mean, I'm sure it's the same way with strength. It takes a long time to grind your way up.
It is, but it isn't, right? So it's that that grind is way fucking harder than people think.
Yep.
And this isn't being negative towards the strength. It's a different type of fucking grind. I mean,
yep.
for me, the repetition of that fucking shit, day in and day out, and it was brutal.
Eating chicken and rice 6 times a day,
yeah,
day after day, month after month, year after year is not fun.
No, and all the other things on top of that. So the carb cycling was kind of a war on me.
Yeah.
Right, because it's like fuck. It was easier if it was just 5 meals a day, the same goddamn thing all the time, than having to actually wave this thing, each day, which created some kind of variety, but it was just enough variety to be able to piss me off even more, right? It just make the grind harder, and it's I think everybody should do it. I really do. I think they should go through it to be able to have respect for the people who do it, to be able to know that this grind it's different and it's really fucking hard. So I can sit here and say the training programming part is easy. Sure. That's fucking not the grind. That's the grind is, oh my God.
The grind's the food.
All the time.
Yep.
And it just doesn't fucking stop. It's just repetitive over and over and over.
Well, everybody wants the PEDs to be the answer. It's the food, really. That's what separates bodybuilders from everybody else. It's the food. And that part is really hard. I remember watching the videos of you getting in shape with Justin.
Yeah.
That was, you look like a bodybuilder.
I like I said, I like the discipline.
You should have gotten on stage.
That's what Justin said, but I don't want. I'm not fucking doing it. I got holes everywhere, holes in my pecs, holes on. But I will say this, because I did have this conversation with Justin. I didn't know because I competed when I was in college, so we're going way the fuck back, like fucking early 90s or some shit like that, and never even went to a show after the last one I did. Like, not even as a participant, like watching YouTube